In today's video, we're going to be taking a look here at our tropical concern along the southern Caribbean into perhaps the Caribbean, the Bahamas, or the Gulf of Mexico. We're also going to be taking a look at multiple major storms taking place around the nation, starting usually from kind of the western or central states and extending into some of the northern and eastern states. We're going to be taking a look at some temperature changes in there. The overall upcoming pattern for the central and eastern states is warmer, but there is some cooler times kind of mixed in there. It's not just warm from start to finish. There is some cooler days, even if it's just, 3 of 10 of them or, 4 out of the 10. It is still some cooler days in there. So we're going to be taking a look at those as well. Let's just dive into things, and we're taking a look here at our European spaghetti model guidance. And what we're seeing is some sort of origination here, and still we have this European model showing almost a direct westerly flow with this thing. Something like this is the general consensus, and anything in between. So we do see mostly a Gulf entry being the most likely outcome according to this European model. Still some slight tropical concerns also to the northeast of this area, so there is kind of two areas of potential concern. We will take a look at the GFS model in a minute. That has been a lot better this hurricane season, but we do see some of these causing impacts nearby Florida or even hitting Florida, especially on that western coast, unfortunately. A lot of these also hitting the Yucatan Peninsula and then entering into this southern, kind of like southwestern Gulf area. But it seems like there's two major groups, one of these heading more towards the eastern Gulf and one heading more towards the western Gulf there. So a little bit of disagreement on this model. The GFS model still disagrees for the most part. There's a couple of these that do agree. For instance, we do see a few kind of meandering their way here straight into the southwestern Gulf of Mexico, but still the majority head directly eastward first off, and then kind of curve back here. Something like this seems to be what we're seeing a lot of. We're also seeing a lot of kind of this activity, so a lot of different options here. But regardless, we see a whole lot of development in here. The darker kind of yellows, reds, oranges is going to be indicative of stronger storms. So we do see quite a few of these kind of looking quite intense. And just to track back to the European model, we see about half of these reaching either yellow or orange here as well. So some intense storms on both of these models. We also can kind of see that there is some origination here as well. I want to try to see if we change the hour, I wonder if we can kind of see here what we're looking at. So this is the next 5 days. Yeah, so we see this storm here developing somewhere in this area. It's a little bit of a wide region, which the National Hurricane Center has been indicating as well. And then we see this area also of disturbance here. Let's just move a little bit forward after this, because I want to see if we can kind of pinpoint that initial system there. We really can't. I want to see. Let's go a step further here. Kind of yeah, there we go. So we do see that some of these are heading kind of directly towards southern Florida and over the Bahamas. So this is a bit of a concern for the U.S. as well. Meanwhile, we see this one kind of moving in here, or again, kind of curving back. So yeah, multiple kind of concerns here. None, it could be nothing. Both of them could end up being nothing, or both of them could hit, or one or the other. We really don't know at this point, but there is a couple areas to watch, I guess, is the point here. So we've been watching it for about a week now. We're going to continue to track. I think that odds are relatively high, especially considering the time of year. Let's take a look here at the European model. I want to take us towards tomorrow afternoon, and what we see is that our snowstorm across the Rockies is kind of coming to an end. We see lingering snow showers there for Wyoming, Colorado, and even northern New Mexico. We do see a low forming now over Kansas and Oklahoma, bringing about some showers and thunderstorms to the central plains, even kind of like the deep south here as well, as you can see, and then upward towards the upper Midwest, also seeing impacts from this one. We do see another storm system as well moving onshore to the Pacific Northwest, bringing snowfall for the mountainous areas, rainfall in the more lower regions. Let's take a look at Thursday, and what we see is that our low that once was over Oklahoma and Kansas has really slid towards the northeast here over the Great Lakes now with a much stronger system. And what we get is a cold front here dragging underneath, warm front out ahead of things, and a little bit of an occlusion maybe perhaps behind, where we're seeing some snowfall in there and some rain, because this is behind the cold front that we're seeing precipitation there at this point. So that allows for some cooler air to interact with the precipitation here for perhaps Minnesota, Wisconsin, Upper Peninsula, Michigan. We will be watching for perhaps some snowfall. And not to mention the southern end we could see some thunderstorms, especially if you're near the Gulf Coast, perhaps Louisiana, Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee here. These southern areas especially, thunderstorms would be fairly possible in here, so be on the lookout for that. We do see more and more snowfall moving on to the northwest, as well as rainfall for more lower areas. By Friday, what we end up with is a very flat jet stream here. This will bring about some cooler temperatures. I would say very close to normal, if not a little bit below normal, depending on where you're at. So keep that in mind. We do see the Northwest still dealing with some nasty weather, snowfall, rainfall, depending on your elevation once again. Saturday, November 2nd here, we see that this is kind of extending now down into the southwest where the Sierra Nevada mountains are seeing snowfall. We also see some activity starting out for the south central states. Speaking mostly about New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas here, where we do see some showers and thunderstorms firing up. This could start out kind of, like some sporadic storms here, but could end up being a low pressure system forming. So we'll be on the lookout for that. We do see a deepening trough for the West Coast with a ridge right here. So if we kind of get this low, let's say this jet stream moves a little bit further eastward and we get a low along it, we could have another cold front, warm front situation. So let's see what ends up happening. And yeah, kind of something along those lines. This is Sunday the 3rd, and we still see just some sporadic showers and thunderstorms located across the plains and Midwest here, which is really good news for these areas that have been struggling to get rainfall. We see heavy amounts there. This trough is still very deep, but progressing kind of eastward now. The ridge is mostly centered over these showers for the most part. We have a slight descending jet stream over the east, which is going to bring closer to normal conditions than your more central counterparts here. Still some snowfall out west, rainfall in the lower elevations, so that is going to be a trend here for multiple days. By Monday on November 4th here, what we're seeing is 1,005 up here over Iowa, 1,004 here between Texas and Mexico. So we're seeing something along these lines as far as some broad low pressure. And this causes overall storminess to be around for many different states. We even see 1,001 up here for Canada. So these are kind of working in tandem here to create all of this storminess that is just kind of exploding throughout these regions here, as you can see. Really, really stormy situation, especially when compared to what we've been dealing with. A very strong low moves on to southwestern Canada, bringing heavy snowfall, especially on the Canadian side of things. But some of the northern Cascades and northern Rockies in the U.S. could cash in on some snowfall even from this system by next Monday. Let's take a look at next Tuesday. This will be November 5th here. And what we see is 1,002 between Oklahoma and Kansas. This is when things really get going. A little bit of a cold front look here with a warm front to the north. If this progresses directly northward, we could watch for some of this cold air to really want to rush in behind it. Meanwhile, we have snowfall in there as well. So very dark, deep Arctic air is located there. Again, thunderstorms could be possible here between Texas and Oklahoma on that cold front side of things. You would expect more heavier rainfall and showers on the northern side here. Let's see how this progresses. I'm very curious as we move towards Wednesday the 6th. And sure enough, it does almost exactly as I kind of just stated. Very similar to our first system. We have the cold front dragging, warm front out ahead of things. So we see the rushing warm air up the east coast. Cold air is swinging in behind this cold front. So this one looks a little more intense. And then we actually get the occlusion here as well over the upper Midwest. So very, very similar to what we've been seeing with multiple lows now moving through. And we do see warming for the West Coast, which could help really shove this cold air further eastward. So multiple driving factors. Let's see what happens by Thursday. And yeah, a little disappointing for cold and snow lovers. We get this really warm air over the west and even central states, but the trough is just really not sticking around. I bet there's not really decent blocking out over the ocean, so we'll have to see. Let's see if we can see it from this view. Yeah, and I think the main issue here is, we have this really strong trough over Greenland, and that's just really flattening this big trough out around these areas. Instead of there being, let me draw a hypothetical jet stream. So if we had something like this, you would likely find that there's very warm air over, Greenland and eastern Canada there, something like that. So you would see more of a ridge pattern here, and then that cold would pour into that center area. But what's happening is we do have this western ridge in place. So we do have this, as you can see, ridge there. But the missing link here is that when we look at our jet stream out here, it's much more of like a trough. So we end up with this kind of like decent little trough, but it's spread really thin because it's hitting two separate areas at once. So all that Arctic air is moving in too wide of an area. It can't get deep into the east. So that is exactly what's happening there. So yeah, that's why we kind of get this really quick progressive trough. I do want to point out, you still see some dipping action, so this could bring about some cooler temperatures, but don't expect anything major as long as that overall look is like this. Don't expect anything major. Although this is nearby 10 days, things could change, but I just wanted to point that out. We do see that trough kind of moving out already. We have this decent little setup for warmth out west, a really strong indication of a positive PNA, but really, really lackluster as far as the troughing in the east here. So this is one of the rare occasions you'll see a very decent positive PNA out west, and then, not even really that cold in the east as a result. So interesting little thing there, a little educational. Let's go ahead and take a look at the total precipitation. Quite a bit for the Pacific Northwest. Also, I would say decent amount for the Rockies here compared to what they typically see. And then really the highlight here is going to be this pocket here, where we consistently see lows forming over the plains, heading over the Great Lakes and into eastern Canada. Also kind of featuring dragging cold fronts as they move along. That brings about heavy amounts of precipitation here. When we look at the anomalies, that is surely the highlight area here, where we see well above average precipitation, especially here across the plains and Midwest in these blues, where we are multiple inches above average over the next 10 days as a result of those low pressure systems. The west and the central states overall doing pretty decent. Most areas above average. It's still just the eastern seaboard here that is struggling to get much in the way of precipitation, unfortunately. Total snowfall. We do see really, really good amounts for the Cascades, Sierra Nevada, Rockies here, seeing feet of snowfall. Definitely good news for the skiing industry out west. The east is still slowly but surely creeping up on some snowfall. It's obviously only the late October, early November timeframe that we're looking at, so nothing is really expected this time of year, but a little bit of a sign of the times is this upper Midwest little bit of snowfall that we get. Take it with a grain of salt. I don't know if that's like specifically in the forecast or if that is something that this model is just showing. You obviously, for a little bit more of a bold take like that, would want to kind of cross-reference it with other models. I haven't had the opportunity to do that for that specific little bit of snowfall, but seeing the models pop up with it here is a good sign, that we are moving into the winter season, and, we're seeing some signs of snowfall. This is usually the area in the central states that starts to get it first. If not, kind of the Dakotas or more western Minnesota, but somewhere in this pocket here is usually the first, obviously. And then we'll start to see New England, especially the mountains, start to go as well at some point with some more major snowfall. And then, the rest is history. It's going to keep creeping southward. So we're starting to move into that time. Very exciting. Here's the temperature pattern. Again, some cooler air along the East Coast left over, especially during the lows, but we get this warm up moving in. Very, very aggressive over the Midwest, the northern plains, the Great Lakes, but we do see some cooler air move in. There's our first little cold front here. So Midwest for Thursday the 31st on Halloween. Here is November 1st on Friday. Here is Saturday, November 2nd. So we see the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast kind of cash in on a quick little cool down. Even Saturday the 2nd, Sunday the 3rd there. It does stick around for the East, but we do see another major warm-up, followed by the end of the model run, this very lackluster trough here. Even though we're seeing some pretty strong indications of a positive PNA, you don't really get that strong cooler air here in the East at all, like we talked about earlier. GFS model, let's just take a look at it, and we see the cold out west, warm in the east. We do get that first cold front there as well. Warm up, another cold front coming through. Again, pretty lackluster on this model too, and we don't really get anything else other than that. Here is the Atlantic 7-day graphical tropical weather outlook from the National Hurricane Center, and we do still have this very orange area over the Southern Caribbean. Still sitting at a 40% chance of development over the next 7 days. This is the area that we've been talking about for about a week now, so we're sitting at about a medium chance. Has it increased or decreased in the past 24 hours? So we will continue to track. There's still 0% chance over the next 48 hours. This is more of a medium to long range storm that we're tracking. But we will keep you guys up to date with all things concerning this storm, the cold fronts, the major storms, everything through the season. We do upload every single day, so be sure to subscribe. You can even hit the bell icon for daily notifications when we upload so you never miss one. Be sure to like the video if you did enjoy it. Leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.